Welcome back, you beautiful beings, change makers, and giants from around the world. I'm Nick Smith, and we've got another great masterclass for you. So hang tight, and we will be right back. Oh, here we are. We got another great masterclass today for you. Joined in studio by Raghav Parkash. We've got Rose Latham in the studio as well. Before we get going, we're going to do a little bit of housekeeping as we always do, just checking in on the event. We're a little less than 3 weeks out. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, it's 17 days. 17 days.
Man, that's coming up. You guys excited?
Yeah, I saw the trailer, the advert you put up. I'm like, oh my God, what is that? I want to go. I'm like, we're going to it. That's it.
It's here. So if you haven't got your tickets, it's time to do it because we're down to the wire. And Rose, did you have some things that we need to share for this session?
I have a couple of things I'd love to share. So the first thing I'd really like to acknowledge about the advert that we just saw actually was the video maker who created that for us, because it was one of the volunteers who I asked very early on, can you please put together an intro for us, because we're doing a masterclass series. So Antonio de Souza, he was heavily involved in organising and creating the London event. He volunteered on the day, and he was gorgeously able to create this for us. And I just, as I was watching, I was thinking, we show it every single masterclass. Loads of people have seen it, and I don't know if I've acknowledged him for it. So thank you so much, Antonio, for creating that intro for us, because it's been really helpful in shaping and framing these masterclasses. The second thing is we are 17 days out. So now is the time to get your tickets. We are seeing 4 to 5 tickets going out the door a day at the moment, which is so super exciting. It's brilliant. People who've been sitting on the fence are getting tired of the splinters and are now jumping across and choosing to come and join us. So there's been a wealth creation group that's been supporting people creating the funds, and also people are just organizing themselves and moving the bits and pieces that need to be moved, booking their hotels. So if you are still unsure and you're not clear whether you want to come and join us or not, do reach out to me, to Nick, to Raghav, to any of the speakers, to anyone on the leadership team. Matt Evans would be your go-to person. And we will sit and listen and help you see and create what you can get out of coming to this event, what is possible for you. None of us are in the business of pushing or persuading. So it would still always be your choice, but now's the time to make a move. And the final bit is, if you have bought a ticket, you are now eligible to buy merchandise for the event. Excuse me. So it's in the latest newsletter. You can buy hoodies, you can pre-order t-shirts, and then collect them at the event. So do look out for your newsletter. Click on the form, order your merchandise so you can be fully branded up to support the charity, the Birmingham Children's Hospital. That's what I have to share at this point. Thank you.
That's amazing. So I can't believe
buy a t-shirt. I'm so buying a t-shirt, wearing it throughout the whole time.
The whole time you're there. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's amazing that you can buy merchandise. I've loved the t-shirts I've seen so far. They're incredible.
They're game changers. I love merchandise, so always creating and looking forward to getting more. So is there anything else, Rose, at the moment?
Just the final 2 things actually worth sharing is that Nick and I have just organised his masterclass, because Nick is one of our speakers at the event, and it would be remiss of us not to showcase you even more than you've beautifully showcased yourself. So we're going to be live streaming here on, we just organised it, didn't we? On this Sunday the 12th. Is that right? If I got the date right? Sunday the 12th.
Mountain and 6:30 UK.
Brilliant. So 11:30 Mountain Time, 6:30 British BST UK time.
The best
We'll
time.
put out all that. And also Caroline Hughes, her masterclass is coming up at 11 a.m. Mountain, 6 p.m. BST UK time on the 19th. So that will be the final masterclass. So we're really getting
Amazing.
super close.
Yeah.
So
And who's hosting that one? Do you know on mine?
It's on your one. That'll
Yeah.
be me. I'll be hosting that.
I'm looking forward to it. I
It'll
think
be
it's amazing. You've done so much behind the scenes. I don't think people realize when comments come up and you look at the organizing of these events. Rose has done all of this, and so she's the one reaching out, organizing the times, scheduling, coordinating, and so I'm really looking forward to sitting and being interviewed by you. So
Yeah,
thank you.
likewise.
Yeah,
Thank you. That's going to be gorgeous.
awesome. Well, let's dive into our class. We've got an amazing guest today. I'll share a little bit about him. Today, join high performance and executive coach Raghav Parkash for his game-changing masterclass, Being is Everything. With over 8 years of experience coaching leaders and running transformative workshops, Raghav understands that mastering your state of being will profoundly shape your leadership, impact, and success. In this live session, you'll explore practical strategies to harness your mindset, eliminate internal barriers, and communicate your value confidently. Raghav will share insights that empower you to recognize your unique strengths and make an extraordinary impact in your organization. By the end of this session, you'll have actionable tools to elevate your professional esteem, transform your approach to success, and lead authentically with purpose. The journey to mastering your inner game starts now. So, Raghav, welcome to the show. We're glad to have you here.
And to be here. Absolute honor.
No pressure, but you've got to live up to every one of those things.
Yeah, you've definitely set the bar high as you're talking and putting it out there. It's
and we may go way off course on any of that. We'll be like, oh yeah, we didn't talk about any of that. It'll be perfect.
That sounds like a very normal being conversation. Like,
yeah, I think so.
Then something else happens, and
yeah, kind of like life.
Yeah.
Well, let's dive into your construct of being. You know, your title for the masterclass is "Being is Everything," and if we could create an operational or ontological definition of being, what do you mean? What are you talking about?
I'm so glad I've had a year gap in between being on the Being podcast, because Sarah Nani back in the day asked me this question. I remember Steve Hardison was watching live. I tried to answer it, and I think my answer sounded like I didn't know how to explain it because it was so. I was at a cusp of really figuring out something for myself. Today, if I were to think about what being means, it's how your thoughts, your thinking, shape your identity, shape how you see yourself, which fundamentally shape your entire experience and world of everything that you will ever go through, do, have, be, achieve. Like, I've gone with the title "Being is Everything" very intentionally, because it's not just about a positive thinking mindset of, if I think better, I'm going to have something. It's literally who I be is my choice, and I get to shape that, which shapes how I experience every single micro detail of my so-called human experience on this existence right now. The relationships I have, how I deal with setbacks, how I experience challenges, how I deal with my partner, how I can create incredible love with her, my business, everything you can think of. All of that is shaped by the person that we're being. And why it's so fascinating to me is we've got a choice over that. We get to design that, we get to define that, we get to create that. And that was such an interesting concept for me, because I never really saw that. I always thought that's something that isn't in my control, and this is life. And so it's been the most mind-blowing journey I've ever gone through. Even as I talk about being is everything right now, I get excited like a little kid. Like, this is so incredible, and I'm only scratching the surface.
Yeah. So you weren't always this way. There was a point in your life where you were thinking otherwise. You had different perceptions of the world. You thought the world operated a little differently. It sounds like. And so the 100%. Being concept is new. Is that accurate?
It's new in the sense that, I think, 100% of the time, when I think about being is everything, it's not just about a positive thinking mindset of, if I think better, I'm going to have something. It's literally who I be is my choice, and I get to shape that, which shapes how I experience every single micro detail of my so-called human experience on this existence right now. The relationships I have, how I deal with my partner, how I can create incredible love with her, my business, everything you can think of. All of that is shaped by the person that we're being. And why it's so fascinating to me is we've got a choice over that. We get to ever since I had the fortune of meeting Steve when he came to London years ago and finding out about his world, it's new in the sense of being in the space for 2, 3, 4 years. And it's only when I was running the London experience with Rose and a number of amazing people, I was there in the front row, kind of really exhausted because of the amount that was going on and half asleep. You won't tell from the camera because it's showing the back of my head, not the front, which is a gift. And I was basically when I was there and I was hearing everyone speak, I realized that I've been talking about being, but from a very personal development point of view. I've done personal development for years, and it's got its place and it's beautiful and it's a pillar. But I realized being in the being experience, running the London event, I have no idea what being is. I've been coaching on it, but if I'm honest, I realized I don't really know what it is because it goes so much deeper than anything I thought. That it's not just a mind trick. It's about everything that you are as a person, as an individual, how you conduct every part of your life. It's not just, this is how I look at being. Okay, I want to grow my business. Who do I need to be to grow my business? Great, fantastic. I'm going to be this person. And then when I come out of this, I'm not going to be that person. I go back into some sort of created version of me that I thought was my default, where it was self-doubt, self-loathing, criticism, lacking self-love for myself and the world around me. I had created that way of being and I thought that was my default. So I'd be going out into the world and trying to be something and then coming back into, that's not what being's about, it's everything. That you're always being, you're always creating. And it's so fundamentally simple, but so powerful. And it hit me so hard when I was running the London experience. And it was one of the most incredible light bulb moments I've had, that I'm only at the beginning of this journey. Like, I don't even know what it is. And that's incredible. Like, that's exciting to actually realize.
Yeah.
Because the world's my oyster now.
It is a big oyster. We'll say it that way. But I want to hang here for a minute because the concept of being, if we think of it as a logical concept of to be something, we say human beings or being something, or, to be, right? Going into Shakespeare, to be or not to be, Hamlet, right? We understand it as a construct. And we think we understand it as a construct. So logically, we have this idea of what being is. But really diving into what being is, it's deeper than an understanding. It's deeper than a knowledge of something. It's deeper than a personal development tool.
Yes.
And that's where I'd like to hang for a minute, is really to dissect that and dive into really exploring and opening up being as the like you say, the everything, the essence of all creation is beingness. And so if you could, I'd love for you to really just open that up even more, because you said you had this epiphany that the world is your oyster and you're just at the tip. But what do you mean? Like, if we could really kind of explore that, what do you mean when you say that? Because you had no concept. You had a concept of being, but you didn't know what being was. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I really love how you're articulating this, because when I think back to the London experience, and so much has changed since then. I had I've got to meet Steve and have a beer with him, and after that, a lot of my life is just accelerated. So I'm trying to track back to that very moment, because I think I'd look at being like a personal development tool, just as you spoke about, where it was something that you could do and you could try on, that you could. It's like, hey, I'm going to a sales meeting, right? Who do I need to be? I'm going to be someone that's confident. So you start being that confident person. And that's good on a surface level. It's going to create the result. But what I really saw was that who I'm being in every part of my life, that's what being is. It's about every moment. It's not just the big moments. It's not just the sports performances. It's that you are always being. And I never really understood that. You are always being. You can never not be being. You are always being something in one way, shape, and form. Just like water will fill its container. Your essence of being is going from moment to moment, creation to creation. There are parts of my life which are thriving. There are parts of my life which weren't thriving. And before the personal development, I thought that just happens. This happens like this. That happens like that. But actually, if I want to see on a deeper level how I'm being, I need to just look at my life. And this is why being is so loving and it's beautiful, but it's also a really good wake-up call. Because when you look at yourself transparently and you look at, for example, that this is quite big with me, I realized that I had held anger against my family. I had some anger from when I was younger. And I'd look at that through the being lens, and I thought, wow, so I'm being angry, I'm being this, and I'm not being someone who is fundamentally connected with who I really am, which is that of love, that of compassion, that of forgiveness, that of ease, that of all the things that I really love and I'm inspired by. Who I'm being is someone that's frustrated with certain parts of my family. So there's a way I'm showing up here. And that was really good to see that it comes back to the core of the very essence of who I am, that being is not a party trick. It's about every single day, how am I shaping myself as an individual? And I never quite understood that.
We had Laurel Erica on our show, and she talks about the I am, right? And what I loved about her show is the way she would play with words. She's a wordsmith. And she talked about the I as a pillar, as a capital I, connecting heaven and earth, right? And then the lowercase I being just connected to the earth, like us humans, most of us we're just connected to earth, but we're not connected in the capital I, where we're connected to heaven and earth. We're just connected to our version of ourselves. And the word being, meaning to exist, right? To have an opportunity to grow. So we exist and we have a chance to grow. And we have this I am version of that being that just is, right? But many of us go around, like you're saying, we have this sense of, I'm going to be successful in my business, so I'm going to put on the mask of successful business owner and play that. And that to me is the lowercase I. That to me is that not really stepping into the full essence of who you are. And I'd love to play with this a little bit, because this concept of being can become very almost religious in a way, where it becomes this, forgive me for this comment here, cultish, right? Something that just people throw around, that is this concept of being as a movement, right? And I would love to play with this, because at its core, what is it? If we really dive into that, because you're talking about the construct of being, of going out and doing something, like T. Harv Eker says, how you do anything is how you do everything, right? Well, that to me seems at a deeper level than throwing on a mask. Can you dive into that?
I love what you've just shared, and there's two things that immediately come up for me around what you've just said. So there's the mask, and then there's the what is being in the simplest form. And I'll share being in a simple form through the metaphor food and cake. So we'll get there in a second. That'll be exciting.
Okay,
so
cool.
It's like with the fake it till you make it. Trust me, I've tried doing that.
Yeah.
I've tried doing that. I for a lot of my childhood, I created, and again this links back to it, but I created a way of being where I felt I wasn't good enough. So for years I would wear a mask, and what personal development gave me, like, it's beautiful, I'm not knocking it, it's transformed a lot of my life, is giving me great tools, which I still come back to today. But I'd kind of taken on affirmations and all these things to put on a mask over the mask I was wearing. So the mask I was wearing was, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I don't like how I look, I don't like how I feel. So the
like
new
a Russian nesting doll, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. But they actually pulled that off a little bit better than I did, because how I was doing it was wearing this mask, going out the world, thinking, right, this is how I now need to be, because I just had this underlying mistruth that I wasn't good enough. So then you compensate. So the fake it till you make it is a problem, because I'm the one that made up I wasn't good enough. That's not true. Like, the fact is, underneath all of that, you are good enough. But so when you're faking it till you're making it, not only are you faking something that's not real because you're faking it, but then you're telling yourself you have to fake it. The real essence of everything we are is perfection, love, the oneness you spoke about, the pillar. So that's kind of where I was, like, teaching myself for years that this is how I need to be. And fortunately, some of my coaches saw through that. And my work over the last 5 years has been kind of taking off the mask and realizing I need to figure out who I am, because I've had no idea. And I've tried to create certainty by wearing this fake mask. But although it looks impressive, it's not the real essence of me. I want to be Raghav. I don't want to try and be something else I'm not. So my whole journey as a coach has just been going through that over the last 5, 6, 7 years, and coming back to the person I am. And what it's taught me about being is that I don't look at anything negative or positive. I see that as a construct. I don't look at a bad way of being. I don't look at things as a good way of being. There's just a system that's fundamentally neutral. And how we use the system is what's going to dictate our human experience.
Okay.
So this is what kind of comes back to the cake analogy I was mentioning earlier, that I come from a family of bakers. We really love putting ingredients in cakes together and making things. And if I get, butter, flour, sugar, eggs, milk, and I combine it with a couple of other ingredients, cocoa powder, I'm going to get a really nice chocolate cake. Now, that's just a result. My belief, if you want to call it the powers that be, God, spirit, whatever, they don't look down at that. I think that's good nor bad. It's just a result based on ingredients you've mixed. If I now get the same ingredients and I put broccoli in it, and I put carrots in it, I put mud in it, and I put brick in it, and I bake it, I'm not going to line up for a piece of that cake. You can count on it, but again, it's not good nor bad. It's just a result. It's just a byproduct of what ingredients I'm combining. And that's what being is. That there is no good nor bad. These are just ingredients you're combining. These are ingredients you're baking in the oven using thought every day that produce a result. So in my case, I could fake it till you make it. I could be saying, like, okay, I need to have this mask because I feel not good enough. But what I point my clients to is, why would you need to wear a mask? Why would you need to fake it? Because if you actually look at the essence of who you are, there's gold there. There's like abundance. There's everything you can think of. The most incredible ingredients to create anything you want. But the misunderstanding makes us play such a limited game. And it's so hard.
Okay, I love it. I feel like we're going to go down a rabbit hole here a little bit. So the idea of the cake, right? The result being, whatever ingredients you choose to mix, it creates the result. Now, the chocolate cake isn't being. The chocolate cake is a result of the ingredients you mixed. But the being, if we go back to the core of it, is the ingredients. I love what Richard Paul Evans, he's a 40 times New York Times bestseller. He says that chaos is the mind of creation. And if being is chaos, let's say this for a minute, that being is existing. It's all of the raw materials being placed in front of us to create anything we can imagine. Then the only limitations would come in what we can imagine. And so if you can imagine a brick cake like what you described, and that's what you can create, well, the raw materials wouldn't discriminate you creating that as a creation. They would allow you to do it. And so when it comes to us and our creation of ourselves, we exist.
Yes.
So to exist as an essence, which I think that goes back to the landmark forums days where they said est, right? To be, to exist is what we do. Now, what we take the raw materials that are around us and form them into, even our own ideals, that's not being. That's transformation into whatever we can imagine. So a lot of that depends on the conditions that we put on it. And help me with this. Are you seeing where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
And I hope this is in line with where you're going, that the being is beyond that what we're doing out here or who people identify us as is just a mixture of ingredients. And those ingredients all existed as possibilities, that our unique nature formed them into what we see today. Raghav the coach, right? Or the mentor is a creation from your being and the ingredients you chose to mix. Is that accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is just, I know it could be an esoteric view, but I don't believe in the concept good nor bad because of that. Because if you go to, I think it's like one author spoke about this recently in a business book I was reading, that if you go to an ocean with a bucket and you can get bucket water, if you go with a crate, you'll get crate of water. The ocean doesn't care. You just get whatever you're coming to the ocean with. So you can create anything. It's a very neutral process. Some people choose to use the infinite ingredients they've got. So they'll go into the kitchen at home and they've got all these ingredients and they choose to make a brick cake. Now, that's not good nor bad. They've got power to create whatever they want. You can create, you're not good enough. You can create, you're not worthy. I've played that game. I've created, I don't feel good enough about myself. What shifted it isn't I've tried to be more good enough. It's someone telling me that, why are you mixing these ingredients together? And I'm realizing, I'm mixing these ingredients together. I don't have to do that. I can use these hands to create a really nice cheesecake, a really yummy cake. I can make a red velvet cake. When I see that I'm making all these different dishes, I get to use the powers that I have to think, what do I want to create? And I get to go and build that. I can create myself as a loving person. I've done that, and it's transformed my relationship with my partner, my family. They prefer that cake a lot more than the brick cake. They've told me stop making brick cakes. They give me great feedback.
Yeah.
I don't like brick cake as well. It's hard to eat and it's high calorie. But
hard on the teeth.
Yeah, hard on the teeth as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to protect these figs. So I get to do that. I can pick any ingredient I like, and I get to combine it. And it's not good nor bad. It's just a creation using power. When you see your power, when you see you've got like a really nice Ferrari, you can drive it into a wall, or you can drive it 180 miles an hour down a motorway. I know what's more fun. I can use these capabilities to do anything.
I'm trying to tie the analogy in here because this is so impactful. What you're sharing is really getting down to the core of it. I think Karan Rai hit it when he talked about via negativa and stripping down everything you think you are to your essence, to your core. And most of the master classes that we've done have tried to do that in some form to really get back to that power that we have. The limitations that we set. Becky Robbins talked about, setting goals, but she'll leave the door open to more. Because of our limitations, we might only see a certain amount of what we think we can accomplish, but then she'll open it up and say, well, but if there's more, I want that. If there's something better, I want that. And so what tends to happen though, is that people identify themselves, their being, as their creation. So they look at their creations and they say, that's me. That, whether they label it good, bad, worthy, unworthy, useful, non-useful, that's up to the individual. And so if you look at the definitions of failure and success, failure is defined as a negative yield from your efforts, and success is defined as a positive yield from your efforts. But the definition of positive and negative comes back to the observer and what they define as positive or negative. So failure and success is a subjective experience, right? So it comes back to the essence, or the est, the beingness is fundamental and exists whether we think we are something or not. And so it's the baker, right?
Yeah. That alone, that distinction over the last few years has helped my mind just become so quiet. Like just the sheer amount of stuff that's fallen away, because I've realized it's all just made up and it's a creation. Failure, struggle, I can call it my own resistance. A lot of it I've realized I've created it, and these things, when they fall away, you get so much closer back to your natural essence, which you can't put words to. It's so hard to try and describe with the language form. But there's something so great when you just allow all that stuff to fall away and you start getting a lot more present to who the baker really is. This intelligence, this power that we have.
Okay, so now there's some options here. When you become the baker, and some might call this a soul level, when you get back to your soul level, and here's the distinction. I heard this the other day. I thought it was great. Somebody says the ocean. You got the ocean, and if you look at the ocean like spirit, right? You take a glass and you scoop up the ocean. Now, inside of that glass, if you put some food coloring in it, that becomes soul. It's distinguished from the spirit, becomes a soul. But then you have the cup that's holding that soul, which is the body, right? And it's all connected. But this idea of our identity, our food coloring that we put into that essence, that deeper level, the baker level, we'll call it, just for the connection here to what you're speaking of, determines what kind of baker we want to be. Are we the kind that want to follow a recipe and instructions that are given to us by others? Or do we want to venture out and maybe make a brick cake, or maybe, create something that's never been done before as a possibility, and start playing with ingredients, the alchemy of baking, right? What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, what I've noticed is that the more I come back to, and I love the baker distinction, the more I come back to it, I just have a lot more freedom in my life. As in, there's a ease, there's a certainty, there's a knowing, there's a quietness. Things start happening on their own without me consciously, like creations happen, and they're so much more effortless because when I'm not seeing I'm the baker, I'm constantly firefighting. I'm constantly wondering, who's made this brick cake? And I'm the only one in the house. Where could this brick cake have come from? It's like if you kind of see a sandwich appear in your house and you're the only one living there, you probably have created it. But no, it can't be me. It has to be someone else. This is unbelievable. That's kind of how a lot of my world used to look, because I didn't realize I was at cause. I didn't realize I had agency. Now I see I created, and I'm just not doing that. People talk about this and ask, well, where does the baker get his inspiration from? There's bakers that do different things in this world, artists, musicians. They all get inspiration from a source, right? We're all connected, we're all plugged in, and I get to access that just so much more. So it's like I feel like an ease. There's more of a naturalness. There's more of a surrender. There's more of a things just get created even better than I can imagine. Just the point that you mentioned, Becky Robbins. And without a lot of the limits I create, it's just fun and fluid. It's just a completely different experience.
I see this, and help me if I'm taking you off course. So you guide me back to where you want to go with this. And you hit on the word surrender. And man, I really love to play with this, because here you are limitless. You are infinite abundance as a being. So you have the ability to be the baker, and you walk into a kitchen that's fully stocked with anything you can imagine. So we make that appear like this world would be, that we have everything is here, and it's up to us to imagine what we want to create with it. And you take these ingredients off the wall and you throw them in the air, and a cake forms and appears. Or is it a meticulous step-by-step process where you try things by titration, and you put in small ingredients here and you taste it there and you bake it over here to see what it's going to do? And other people have done that, where we can learn from them, mentors, and they have their version of baking cakes. If we want to make the same cake they want to make, we would follow their path. But when you're in creation and it's never been created before, it never existed before you, and you're playing with those ingredients in that kitchen, how do you surrender? Do you just throw it to the wind and hope it falls together as a cake? Or is there a process and a system that being uses to create with? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And I'll answer it in the way that occurs to me. Tell me if I've missed a part of your question, because it's such a juicy topic.
Yeah,
so there's this quote that I heard like not long ago, and I love it. It's quiet in the mind and the soul will speak. Quiet in the mind and your soul will speak. Okay. So how that occurs to me is that I will go through so many situations in my life, even before I came into the whole being concept, like conscious being, because I was always being, but I wasn't consciously being. So before I came into the consciously being concept, there were so many times I'd go through something. And even today, when I can't figure it out, before I look at who do I need to be, because I want to make sure I'm not being as a reaction, I want to be in cause. If I allow myself just to get really quiet, whatever occurs to me as a way to do it is naturally just going to occur to me. But the quieter I get, a lot of what used to look like the problem actually has disappeared. And I start experiencing a more of a natural beingness. And it's going to take different forms. Like sometimes something else will occur to me instead. Sometimes it will be a specific way to be, a specific way to tackle something. And it's going to vary point by point. I'm sure you experience as well with the many, many people you come across in the being space. When I'm with a client, even after 10 years, I have no idea what's going to go down in every session. I have no clue. That it takes such a different direction. But as a starting point, if I just allow myself to get really quiet and relax, suddenly I find myself operating in whatever that thing is. It just takes over me. It doesn't even feel conscious.
It's somewhat, and I think you are in line here, the download that people talk about, that creation downloads through them. And it's almost like the thing that is to be created in this material world was already created in the ethereal. It just needs to download. And when you get quiet, it does that through you. You know, the book, The Giants and the Smalls, was a download. It wasn't a thing where it just, it wasn't me just like making stuff up. But it was like that book flowed through me. And then my hands helped bring it into the world. And you look at any creation, they often come through as and help me if I'm off on this, but as a download and a flow into this world through you because of your quietness.
Yes. Oh yeah, I'm a huge fan of Karan Ray. I think he's someone who I love people that are just incredible role models, and from an Indian community, he's someone I really admire a lot, Karan, and I've told him that many times. And we were in India, we were having this conversation over a really nice masala chai, and I was saying to him, Karan, I just love how you create so beautifully and effortlessly. As in, he is someone who is the epitome of creation. He's so physically good looking. I mean, when people speak to me, they're like, "Oh, Raghav's the other Indian guy without the muscles." Karan is so like, which unfortunately, because I've done the being work, I'm not offended these days because I'm not going to create offended. But it's the other guy, and I'm working on the muscles, Karan. But how to get that in? But it's like he's created like his mind, what he does, how he looks at the world. I'm in awe of how he does what he does, but with such grace and composure and spirituality. And I went to him and I said, Karan, how is it you do what you do so effortlessly? And I was expecting him to say, like, you just got to hustle, boringly consistent, because he talks about these things. I was expecting him to give me something that was very like, but what he said was so profound. He said, everything in my life just flows. It just flows. And that was like, wow, that really hit me over the head. I was just so blown away by that. That yes, it's about the doing and it's about the being uncomfortable that I'm a huge fan of, and he talks about that as well. I'm part of the Cold Shower Club. I do all this stuff, but it doesn't come from like a head-based thinking, logical. It comes from a natural. It takes over you and it inspires you, and this feels like the right thing, and it just flows through you. And there's an effortlessness that occurs, and it transcends the mind, because the mind will think, how can that be effortless? There are people like yourself I could go and be with for 12, 15 hours and it's effortless. In the past, when I used to have a lot of thinking, there's someone I could be with for an hour and I'd find it hard work. Time is an illusion. All these things are kind of made up forms. And when you just allow things to flow, miracles can occur. Transformations occur. And that's what I got from Karan. And it's just so nice to hear that at the essence of it, it's just a surrender, there's a flow, there's an ease, an underlying beautiful home which he creates from.
There's a statement of being and a statement of mind, right? There's two things, and I want to pull up one of these comments here and have you look at this with me as well. But the statement of being is everything just flows, and that's a statement from being. Like your core knows that everything's going to flow. Your mind would come out and create something of these declaration statements have become somewhat affirmations for a lot of people. It's like, I'm not that, I don't believe on that, but I'm going to say it enough times that maybe I'll become that. Right. So they become statements of mind. And when you say a statement of being, like what Karan just said, everything just flows. That was spoken from a knowing.
Yes.
Right. And then the mind might come in and try and make sense or fit in or receive acceptance or whatever it thinks would be approvable by others or your own ideals. Then it tries to make up based on that. And you feel the discomfort between the dissonance, right? Between who you are at your core and that. And you're like, that just isn't true, but I'm going to speak it until I think it's true. And then maybe that'll change my core. Is that accurate?
I think there's definitely a part of it. It's definitely a huge part of it. I'm not going to, I'll be honest, I haven't got this all figured out. So this stuff, and I'm probably going to feel like this when I'm 120, 130, because I'm planning to live that long. So I've got it all planned out, my life. But it's like, I'm probably going to still have this answer. But what occurs to me is that, yes, you can speak it and speak it and speak it again and again. And that works. And that changes your neurology. It creates neural pathways. It changes your neuroplasticity in the mind. That works. But I also think whenever I get a client come to me and they'll say, well, look, I'm struggling to believe this. The reason they're struggling to believe it is because they're believing something else. That therein lies a problem. So they'll say, yeah, I have this voice in my head. Now, the voice in your head, I've learned and I've trained myself to love that voice in my head. Because when I look at the nature of it, it's actually trying to help me. It's trying to keep me safe. It's trying to stop me from being in danger. It's like, I use this analogy with a client because I saw this ad for a car. I think it was a car advert. And they showed the way a daughter tried to say, I love you to her dad. She basically got the dad's car keys and she scratched on the car, I love you, dad, on the bonnet. And it's hilarious. Now, the daughter meant well, great intention, just not the right execution. That's what our internal voice is. That is so well intentioned. It's trying to keep us safe and it's trying to love you, but it's doing it in a way that isn't actually conducive for results out in this world. So the ego itself is trying to get you to get rid of it. And that's the ego. When you say, how can I get rid of this? That's the ego speaking. Because you are not the ego. You are the, whatever analogies you want to use, you are an extension of the wave. You are the wave, that's an extension of the ocean. You are connected to all that is. So that's actually your true nature. So by virtue, you cannot be the noise. You cannot be the voice. So the ego is the one that's trying to get you to get rid of the voice. I don't do that. I just love that. And I love my internal voice. And I recognize it's not telling me anything useful. It never has been. It never will be. It's not a good predictor. It's not a good indicator. It's not a great forecaster. It's not a great personal assistant. It doesn't give me good advice. It just makes a lot of noise, but I don't need to listen to it.
Yeah.
So when I start treating well, how can I be certain? I'm not certain. Why aren't you certain? Well, I'm not certain because I feel this doubt. Well, what happens if we stop believing this doubt? If we start melting this away, you suddenly start having more certainty. But what people will do is they'll have a lot of cognitive dissonance, where they've got two beliefs going on, two ideas that I want to be certain, but I'm creating the possibility that I'm going to fail down the future. So when we start dissolving this away, you come back to your natural self, which is one that has certainty and confidence. It's all inbuilt. That's what occurs to me.
You just answered this question. I don't know if you could see that.
Oh, this question here by Laurie.
Yeah, yep. You just answered it, truthfully. What I continue to struggle with is others telling me that I'm not who they think I should be and letting others' opinions make me feel small. And then it went back to that, how do you let go of that? But the ego is worried about how to let go of that. The ego is identified with that in some form. Your identity, in essence, what you're saying is that identity is connected to what others think. And therefore it has a hard time letting go, because who would it be without that? And what would life feel like if it didn't have that story and that justification to be that in relation to others, that I need to worry about what they think of me? Now, it doesn't mean you go out and throw bricks through people's windows, and that's okay, right? It just simply means that that you can look at your core, like you say, your security is at your core. Yes. That peace comes from the core. That peace comes back from that existence and knowing you exist with or without these people, or with and without those situations. Is that close to what you're describing here?
Oh, definitely. Yeah? You know, I don't know how many of the viewers will be familiar with the document. The document that we get to create. Whoever's been in the being circles, coaching circles, you'll have come across it. Or if you haven't, I've heard that Fiona and Dave Orton will be doing a live creating a document at Birmingham. So another reason why you need to be in the room. And in my document, I have it here and I've memorized it back to front. And I have the document above me, literally right there, and I get to read it again and again before I go on a client call. The first line in my document, and I've very intentionally put this in there. So the document is it's a set of creation statements you have about the person you're creating yourself to be. So the number one line I have is, I am in love with what is always. I'm in love with what is always. Why I love that is that whenever I go in through any conflict, when I can start coming to a space of accepting what is, even if, so for example, Laurie's question, what if I continue to struggle with others telling me that I'm not? Even if I've got the answer, if I can start just being really okay with whatever's going on, whatever the situation is, accepting it. So I'm not saying ignore your boundaries, just a very simple way, accepting
giving voice to it, right?
Yeah, just observing it, being aware, no longer fighting it. I just choose to love my experience. Suddenly my common sense just clicks in, and I'm no longer thinking from the fight or flight mechanism in my mind. I'm now thinking from the very essence of who I really am. You know, I'm not the mind, I'm not the logic, I'm everything that comes before and after, but not the in between. So I get to come from that space instead. And when I do, whatever occurs to me to do is just so much more resourceful. It's so much better. It's just such a higher level form of thinking. So when I can come back to just accepting and loving what is, I'm not fighting reality. I'm working with it. And it's unbelievably powerful.
See, the being is everything. I can hear the power of that statement. Being is everything. But the concept of being that gets in the way of being is everything is that I need to be something or do something to be the right kind of being so that I can be everything. Right. It's almost like these rules that we put on things so that we can live up to whatever ideals we think we should have for ourselves or whatever ideals we think others should have for us. And then we judge ourselves. And then we judge ourselves and justify ourselves for who we're being. And then we stay stuck in that and we get spun up in our judgments and justifications rather than our essence. But if you can step back, like what you're saying, and observe that, then who's observing all the judgments? Who's observing the justifications? Who's observing everything that's going on in your life? Who's observing that you have thoughts about what happened in your childhood that developed you the way that you are today, right? There's something outside of it, the observer self, that being self that is independent of all of the attachments that we have through life. And that's everything. That's what I hear you saying. And that's where all creation comes from.
Yeah, because being is, because even in that sense, like if you imagine, it's like how it really nicely put how you've just spoken on how being is everything. Because if you don't see that, and if you associate with the mind, and if you see the mind as you, and you don't see yourself as a listener, you see yourself as the thinker, then that's a form of being. Who I'm being is I am my thoughts. So that's a form of being. And that is like the brick cake. That's going to produce a really nasty cake that won't taste so good and one you don't want to serve to your guests unless you don't like them. So that's the brick cake. Now, on the other side, it's if we recognize, well, okay, if I have a voice in my head, and as you've said, I'm the listener and the observer, but I'm not the thinker, because if I can hear it, I can't think the thought. And I'm not this thought. As you see that, that's a different set of being again, a different consciousness, and that creates a result. So that also produces a different type of cake. Either way, you're getting different results, but being creates all of it. So being is literally everything. Whatever cake is required to bake, you're going to be the baker. So it's the more I can look in this direction and see that I'm the one who creates this, I can practice recipes, I can test, I can experiment, I can fall in love with the process. And that was my experience, because I had no idea what being was. And I very candidly said to Steve, whom I be with at the beginning, I said to him, I have no idea what being is, and I have no idea who the hell I am. Right, over to you. And he kind of just laughed and said, I just love your honesty. Because I could do so much with that. I could play, I could make it fun. I can get curious. Wow, what's that? If I'm not my thoughts, then what am I? If I don't have to react, what am I? If I can then love what is, wow, what could happen? You're just opening up the floodway to so much richness and gold in your life.
Yeah, you're cleaning the slate.
Yes.
Right? All the things you think you are. There's a thing in psychology or research called the remembered presence, that people act as if they're present, but they're present from everything they remember. And so they bring that forward into the present moment, and then they experience the present moment from that remembered presence. So they're really just a collection of their memories. And what this does, what the being does, is it's like the Etch-a-Sketch. It shakes it up, it clears out the screen. So that really from this moment, you can choose to take that remembered presence forward, or you can just leave it behind. Like if there are parts and facets of it that you want to carry in and you like that part and you want to carry that with you, carry it. But you don't have to. You could wipe all of it if you wanted to at any moment.
Yeah.
Is that what you're offering?
Like that.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah. Just literally like that. I had a client say to me something like, how do I drop this? So I recognize I have this view, I have this belief. How do I drop this? And behind me, I had a rucksack, and I was lifting it up. And I said, right, so if I had this rucksack and I'm going to the Birmingham experience and I'm going to go on stage and I'm sitting down with Gary and I've got this big red Santa sack, and Matt Evans is saying, Raghav, what are you doing with this rucksack? I said, well, I don't know. I've been carrying this for 10 months. I can't just drop it now because I've been carrying this for the last 20 months, 30 months. If I'll be a high achiever, let's say 40 months. I've been carrying this for the last 40 months. And Matt's like, so why are you taking it on stage with you? Drop it. I'm like, how do I drop it? I've been carrying this for so long. How do I drop the sack? And I said
to that's such a visual.
Yeah. And I was saying to this client, imagine you're there, watch this conversation. Matt, how can I drop this? It's like big and it's heavy and it's red. I've been carrying this for so long. I can't drop the sack. What type of person would I be? Like, how would I drop it? And my client at one point, he was listening. He goes, Raghav, drop the fucking sack. Just drop the sack, man. I'm like, and he was like, oh, that's really simple. Wow, can it be that simple? And I was saying to the client, no, we should make it harder. Let's just complicate this a bit more. Because, and I'm not saying that's the answer to everything. There's different forms of therapy and work and sound healing. All these things have their place. But the large majority is when you can start dropping things like that, then you open yourself up to everything else. And that's how easy it can be. Literally, drop it. It takes effort to pick it up. That's the hard stuff. Dropping is easy.
Holding it is the hard part.
Yeah, holding is the hard part.
And we've developed muscles around holding it. We've developed strength around holding it. To the point that it's easy for us to hold it because we know what it's like to hold it forever.
Yeah, so we can get a friend to help us carry the bag as well.
Yeah.
And we'll get more resources to try and carry something that you can drop like that.
And our friends will buy into it. They'll be like, of course I'm going to help you. You've got great stories and justifications for having this knapsack, this rucksack. Like, I need to help you with that because your story makes sense to me. And they support you in that baggage. And the whole problem is that none of it is objectively, collectively true. It's subjectively true.
Yes.
For any of us. And so the power of being is getting back to you exist with or without that.
Yes. And it's a form, and you know what? If you really want a big, bright red sack, you go and pick that sack up and do it as a powerful creator and make it muscle gain, weightlifting. If you're going to lift weights, do it like Quran. Do it consciously to grow muscle, not to strain yourself and to show up in relationships carrying such a heavy sack. It's hard. And you get to drop it like that. You get to experience the freedom of what you are like that. It's so easy. And I wish, again, lots of stuff I could have seen when I was younger. And I'm tempted now, if Matt Evans is listening to this, to actually demonstrate this live by carrying a red, big...
I think you should.
Sack. Yeah, let's go and do that. I love winding Matt up. It's got to be done.
Yep, I think that would be a powerful metaphor, visual metaphor of an impactful message that people would get instantly. It would be so memorable.
Absolutely.
I think you should do that. And if you're not going to do it, I'm going to do it. So I'm going to steal your idea.
If it ends my friendship with Matt, then it's worth it. Just impart this lesson.
I think it's such a powerful view of what's possible for each of us. When you talk about being, you already are being. Like, there's no becoming being. It's at your core. It's at your essence. You exist. You are. You think, therefore you are, that whole idea. I think, therefore I am. And I am is beingness. You are that with or without any of your identities or whatever you choose to put in that bag. And so now it comes down to that you are also surrounded by a world and universe that is stock full of everything you would ever need to create anything you could possibly imagine. Yeah. And the only limitation would come from that perception of who you think you are. That would be the only limitation. It's everything.
Yeah, you made it sound so nice and succinct and simple. You've articulated it so beautifully because I'm thinking, wow, that's just simple. And that's how you know, like, you've done a really great explanation of that because it's just so concise and simple.
It's it because we put on all this stuff and then we have stories to justify it and to judge ourselves for it. And we stay in it because we have all the stories to tell people why we're justified to keep it. And people listen to that and they say, you know what? That sounds reasonable. You're right. I'm going to hold you in that same space you hold yourself. And therefore it's supported by our friends. They carry the rucksack with us. Yeah. And the problem is it's all bullshit. Yeah. Right?
And it's so liberating when you see just what Laurie has spoken about now is just liberating. Like, it's just so beautiful. I get like touched when I think about the difference it's made in my life, the difference it's made in the lives of my clients, the difference it's made in so many people that I've come across, yourself, people like Fiona, Rose, Laurie. It's just magnificent because there's the anger that comes with it, and it's like we can get angry if, oh, it's that easy, I can start putting it down, except you do all that. But then you just experience such love, such ease in your life, that you just have a beautiful, deep innocence of seeing yourself in a way you never have. And I've made a commitment to myself just to create a culture where there's an absence of judgment, that there's no red sacks, that every day is an opportunity just to keep falling in love with myself in a different way. And whenever I spot that I'm carrying a red sack, or whenever my coaches spot that I carry a red sack, I just know if I put that down quicker, it's going to help, because it doesn't serve. Like I used to think it used to serve. It doesn't serve. I don't need to look like an Indian Santa Claus. Other people can do that. Yeah.
But even if you pick it up, there's no judgment in picking it up. Like even if you put it back on your shoulder, there's no judgment in putting it back on your shoulder, only the judgment you might give yourself. Like we don't have to shame ourselves over that. We don't have to say, I'm sorry. I heard the other day about sorry being a form of shame. When you say I'm sorry to somebody, and there are apologies and ways to change your behaviors, but often sorry is used as a statement of shaming yourself for what you did and making yourself less than for what you did, rather than creating an actual change from it. And if you pick up the rucksack, the big red bag, and you did that for a moment, you could just set it down again. You don't have to judge yourself for picking it up. You can just set it down and start again, right?
Yeah, I think there's a quote from when I read this book, Loyalty to Your Soul by the Holnicks. It's a really beautiful book. And one of the things they talk about in there is stackers, which are tests from the universe that can nurture our spiritual growth. That's what stackers are. It's tests that occur in different forms. And all our tests are big red bags. That's what our tests are, the big red bags. And they've got a really nice quote in the book, which is, don't try and leave the university, don't try and drop out and stop all of this from happening, because people think, I need to not ever have red sacks again. That's the ego speaking. The ego is telling you shouldn't have red sacks. You know you are not the red sack, so you're okay holding the red sack, because you know you can put it down again. That's wisdom speaking. And in the book, they talk about, stop trying to drop out of the university and just graduate. Graduate through the curriculum. Be on the curriculum and graduate through it. And I love that, because it's about staying on the path and recognizing every single thing I'm experiencing, every single thing I'm going through, every experience I have right now is showing me how I can be a better baker. It's helping me enrich my experience.
That is awesome. Yeah. Graduate. And I have to look up the word, because it's just, to me, it sounds like something that elevates, go from one level to the next, to the next, to the next, right? But, it says here, one who holds a degree, right? To take a degree, to step, climb, right? To graduate, to climb above, like just graduate, just learn from it, just grow from it. You picked up the red bag, big deal, graduate. Yeah. Powerful, become the baker. This is become, I love this, being a better baker. Raghav, our time is just flying by here. And I feel like we just hit the tip of the iceberg on this. Like you said, you're just learning this and you're diving into it. And I know we're going to dive in more at the event, but I have a question around, and I love to ask it. Is there a topic or question or subject that you wish you would be asked about? Something that you wish you could talk about, that you wish somebody would bring up? And for this particular show that you and I are on right now, this masterclass, is there something like that comes to mind that you just wish, I could talk about this thing or be asked about this thing? And if so, what would that be?
Well, there's a couple of thoughts to come to mind, like on different spectrums. One is, like, what is high performance in being? Like, how does being create high performance? How does it, because I have a lot of clients who will come to me and they'll say, look, this stuff sounds really good and lovey-dovey and whatever, because they haven't spent enough time in the being space. It looks like an esoteric, happy camper sort of thing. It's a lot more than that. That the essence of high performance is everything we've spoken about today. Literally everything. The surrender, the letting go, and operating from flow and fun. Right? I love that. I mean, the other side of it is, how do I drop my red sack? How do I put the sack down? That's the most fun, liberating conversation to have.
Yeah. Yeah. So, when I hear somebody ask a how question, I often think there's a lot of fear associated with it. Like, how could I let this go? As though, like, how could I cut off a piece of my body, like my arm or my leg or my big red sack, right?
Yeah.
That sounds wrong. But,
Yeah.
but you know what I mean? It almost, that how question comes from it. For me, it comes from this space of fear, where it could also come from a space of curiosity. Like, how could you? If you ask that same question, how could you?
Yeah.
Right?
What would happen if I did?
Yeah, what would happen? Is that possible? And man, the high performance thing is just when you strip down to the nothingness, to the beingness, to the everythingness. Well, then what do you want to put back on it? If high performance is what you want to put back on it, put that back on it. Right? If you want to pull these ingredients in, pull those ingredients in.
Yeah. It's like when you get all this stuff out of the way, who's the one high performing? Is it the small I that's high performing? Is the bigger I? Is it who is high performing? I don't know if I'm high performing. Am I even high performing? I don't think about it as high performing. You see, the word is just a construct. So the irony about high performance is stop trying to do high performance. And it's paradoxical, but I mean, this is an hour and a half conversation.
It is. And we could go down another rabbit hole on that, because it's it really is. It's a construct and it's a creation, right? Is there anything else you want to share today before we wrap up?
Just to come to the Birmingham experience. I know I've been telling all my clients to come at the risk of getting restraining orders. I've just been on their backs speaking to my friends, say, you've got to come to the Birmingham experience, because it's so unparalleled in the sense of the event. And it's not about, I'm talking about the being movements altogether, the being movement that Eric Lotham is running, where these events are an extension of that, where Matt Evans has taken the reins. And, I know I've got Lord Raghav here, but it's also Lord Matt Evans, because he's leading this thing so beautifully. And I don't even know if there's going to be anything like this again, because the future is not ever set. You don't know that this is such a unique experience. I mean, just the caliber of the people in the room and the conversations that are going to be had. I know I'm going to come out there a better human being, a better son, a better brother, a better partner, future husband, better coach, a better baker, everything. I know I'm going to come out a much extraordinary version of me. So if you're thinking about coming to Birmingham, get off the fence. If you're not on the fence, get on the fence, then we can get you off the fence on this side of the fence. And if you're coming, then it's going to be incredible. Like, it's going to be powerful. So I can't wait to see you all there. You have to come to this thing.
It will be life changing, right? Life transforming. And I think what people are going to learn the most is their power that's already in there. They're going to discover that and uncover it. And you gave a sense of that today, is really stripping down, all these concepts and constructs. And personal development is full of my 400 books in my library that I'm just like, they're all on different perceptions of the same thing. Yeah. And what you've given of today is a taste of that, that the being is already in you. It's in every one of us. And that's, we use the term giants in my world, but being giants, it's all the same concept. It's just different languaging for it, but it's at the core. We are all that already. Now it's just stripping down everything that's not that and then rebuilding it to what we would like it to be, And so I appreciate you, man. I enjoyed this. I know I could go on for hours. For those that are watching, we appreciate you. Definitely go get your ticket. Remember, your comments make this what it is. We appreciate you sitting with us through the entire episode and sharing your comments. We like to pull those up on screen. But you probably know somebody today that's going to benefit from this conversation. And so my invitation to you is to take this, get it on YouTube or Facebook and share it with them and tell them why they should watch it, and make that invitation. Send them this and an invitation to come join us in Birmingham, because that would be a powerful demonstration of what they're going to get in that event, and so much more. So Raghav, thank you so much for being you, and appreciate you being on the show with me today.
Thank you. Thank you for making an hour and 4 minutes feel like 10 minutes.
You're welcome. You too. Everybody else, thank you. We will see you in the next episode. Make it a giant day.